All right, let's dive right in. We usually think about Earth's history in these huge, almost unimaginable stretches of time, right? We're talking epochs, periods, eras, stuff that lasts for millions and millions of years. But what if the whole story of our planet took a sudden, sharp turn? A brand new chapter, not written by, say, an ice age or a giant asteroid, but by us. And what if that new chapter actually began within the lifetime of our own grandparents?
Well, our story really kicks off with this incredibly powerful and totally spontaneous statement. This wasn't some planned announcement or a carefully written research paper. Nope, it was more of an outburst. These are the words of a Nobel-winning chemist, Paul Crutzen, and in just one moment, he gave a name to our era, the Anthropocene, the age of humans.
So you got to picture the scene, right? It's 2002. There's a big scientific conference, a room packed with scientists. And the person running the meeting keeps talking about our current time, the geologic epoch we're in, using its official name. And Paul Crutzen, he's just sitting there in the audience getting more and more frustrated. Finally, he can't take it anymore. He blurts out, "Let's stop it. We are no longer in the Holocene, we are in the Anthropocene." And apparently the whole room just went dead silent. But you can bet that during the next coffee break, it was the only thing anybody was talking about.
So what was this Holocene thing he was so worked up about? Well, the Holocene is the official name for the geological epoch we've been living in, pretty much since the last ice age ended about 11,500 years ago. And what's really important is that it's been this incredibly stable, kind of gentle period in Earth's history. And that stability is exactly what allowed human civilization to really take off and flourish. Crutzen's big shocking claim was basically this: that stable period, it's over, and we're the ones who ended it.
And wow, did Crutzen's ideas strike a chord. Pretty soon, geologists started to ask this really serious question. Are we actually leaving behind a permanent, globally recognizable layer in the rock? I mean, to officially declare a whole new epoch, that's what you need. You need cold, hard evidence, a kind of human fingerprint that some geologist millions of years in the future could dig up and say, aha, something big happened here.
And that is such a fascinating question, isn't it? I mean, when you think about the mark we're leaving, what pops into your head? Probably our massive towering cities, right? Our endless highways? Well, the real challenge for these scientists was to figure out what, if any, of our stuff would actually survive the incredible pressures of deep geological time. And let me tell you, the answer is probably not what you'd expect.
So yeah, we look at our concrete and steel skyscrapers and think they're built to last forever. But geologically speaking, they're basically just dust in the wind. See, most cities are built on land that's eroding away, not building up new layers of rock. But our farms? Now that is a whole different story. Our worldwide obsession with just a few crops like corn and wheat is going to leave behind this very distinct kind of monochrome layer of pollen all over the planet. It's a dead giveaway of a massive change in the Earth's biology.
And the evidence doesn't stop with just pollen, not by a long shot. Think about extinctions. The rate at which animals and plants are disappearing right now is, well, it's hundreds, maybe even thousands of times higher than the normal natural rate. When those species vanish from the fossil record, that's a scar that never heals. And then there's what we've done to the planet's rivers. All of our dams are trapping so much mud and sand that we are literally redirecting where future rock layers are even going to form.
Okay, but as dramatic as all those physical changes are, the pollen, the extinctions, the dams, the most powerful evidence for the Anthropocene, the real smoking gun, is something you can't even see. It has nothing to do with what we've built. It's all about what we've released.
When you boil it all down, it really comes to this. We have fundamentally changed the chemistry of our own planet. The staggering amount of carbon dioxide we've pumped into the atmosphere by burning fossil fuels, that's probably the single biggest geological event to happen in millions of years. You can't see it, you can't smell it, but its impact, oh yeah, that is going to be written into the rock for a long, long time.
Just think about what that means for a second. The warming caused by all that CO2 could eventually raise sea levels by 6 meters. That's about 20 feet. An increase like that would literally redraw the maps of every single continent on Earth. So long after our cities have crumbled and our cars have rusted into dust, that brand new coastline, that will be a crystal clear marker of our time here.
The scale of this change is just staggering. And that CO2, it doesn't just hang out in the air. A huge amount of it gets absorbed by the oceans, and that makes them more acidic. And this whole process is happening so ridiculously fast that some geologists say the effect it'll leave in the rock record could look just as sudden and just as destructive as the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs. Yeah, that big.
And here's why that comparison makes sense. All that acid in the ocean makes it super hard for critters like corals to build their skeletons. And if things get bad enough, reef building could just stop all over the world. When that happens, it leaves something geologists call a reef gap in the fossil record. And get this, these reef gaps are basically the calling cards of the 5 biggest mass extinctions in the entire history of Earth. We might be in the middle of creating the 6th one right now.
Okay, so with all this evidence piling up, it's looking more and more like we really are in a new epoch. So, the scientific community had to tackle the next huge question. If the Anthropocene is a real thing, when did it actually start? Where exactly do you draw the line in the sand, or, in the rock?
Well, it basically boiled down to 3 main contenders. Some scientists argued it all started way back with the dawn of agriculture, like 8,000 years ago, since that's when we first really started changing the landscape. Paul Crutzen, the guy who started this whole conversation, he kind of liked the late 1700s, with the start of the Industrial Revolution and our love affair with fossil fuels. But there was a third date that really started to gain the most steam, the middle of the 20th century.
So to try and settle this debate once and for all, this special committee was formed, the Anthropocene Working Group. Sounds official, right? And for years, these scientists dug into all the evidence. Everything from ice cores in Antarctica to layers of mud at the bottom of lakes, all to come up with an official recommendation. And when, in 2016, they made their decision, the verdict was finally in. The official scientific group in charge of this stuff formally agreed. The Anthropocene is geologically real. We are living in a new epoch. Turns out, Paul Crutzen's outburst back in that conference room, well, it wasn't just him being grumpy. It was a genuinely profound scientific insight.
And they even picked a starting date, 1950. So why 1950? Because that year marks the beginning of what scientists now call the Great Acceleration. It's the period right after World War II when pretty much every metric of human activity, population, resource use, energy consumption, it didn't just grow. It exploded. It went into overdrive. That was the moment humanity truly became a planet-altering geological force.
Which, brings us full circle, right back to the man who kicked this whole thing off. For Paul Crutzen, this was never just about getting a new word into some dusty geology textbook. His goal was much, much bigger than that. He wanted the term Anthropocene to be a wake-up call, to make us all realize the immense power we now have over our planet and the massive responsibility that comes along with it.
So at the end of the day, the Anthropocene isn't just a neat scientific label. It's more like a diagnosis. It's telling us that, like it or not, we are now in the driver's seat of the entire planet. It's a warning, literally written into the rocks beneath our feet. And the big question it leaves hanging in the air for all of us is, what are we going to do about it?